see this youth being what's the right word, hijacked,
right,
pawned, used, and you kind of wonder just how much of this shit you're going to tolerate. And then you move yourself forward to Seattle and you tell yourself, okay, now you've got a bunch of patchouli smelling barefoot hipsters running around it,
right,
that they've never had the visible means of support before this started. So now they're going to get militant because nobody shot at them. I'm just going to say that straight up front. If you come attacking, I mean, they have hurt a lot of people. They have hit people with bricks. They've maimed them. They've shot them. They've burned their businesses. They've destroyed their belongings. They've stolen things that don't belong to them.
Mm-hmm.
And they basically have been received by a tolerant and I would say extremely passive public. And I think it's because a lot of people, nobody wants to be the first one to shoot these sumbitches because they don't want to be the ones that go to trial and lose what they already are trying to save.
Right.
So you have that going on. So what they do is they play off of that. Then you've got complicit. We watched a video of the mayor of Minneapolis make many attempts. Clearly an inexperienced guy. He's just young, very, very impressionable and passive. Don't know how he got in there, but he's in there. Was basically shamed by this BLM movement publicly and ran off, shunned, and told to leave the protest. Dude, that's his city. He's the leading official in that city.
Well, that's funny when you live kind of in a progressive world, and I don't say progressive in an ugly way, because how I look at it is I had this thing on my Facebook that comes up, and it kind of shares memories of things, from, I guess it goes all the way back to when I first even opened a fucking account. Okay, so anything that it historically tracks, and I don't even know how it does it, but so it just kind of, on an anniversary day, whether it's 1 year ago or however it was, 12 years ago, it'll highlight, hey, here's what you did on such and such day. So one of the things that I've been noticing here lately is some of my rants would come back through my Facebook feed, and I would kind of juxtapose, this is Sam at 2020 and this is Sam at like 2011, 12, 13, and so by the time I was already overseas, and I've come back and I've stayed sort of very aggressive in just a lot of the political stuff. And then when I start looking at how I was at 2012 to where I am now, I can kind of see a mellower me, which I think is kind of funny. Is I may still have the views that I wrote in 2012 or whatever, but I also grew in different understandings of whatever else I was going off a rant about. But do I think that there are things out there that in society now that can be unchallengeable? No, everything can be fucking challenged. Because I'm not like the things that the one thing that I won't challenge is the establishment of the United States, the Constitution, the forefathers. Do I think that those forefathers were without sin? No, fuck no. But the thing is whatever was existing at that time, it was fucking acceptable. I never said that it was right, or nobody's saying that it was right. It's just how the world was then. So you can't go 400 years into the past and try to correct all the bullshit that happened there.
Yeah, man, I don't know. Just take my pausing as disgust, because
in the answer or
everything. I'm sitting here. So right now, I'm looking into things. So Texas is preparing to defend the Alamo against vandals and Antifa.
Yeah, this has something to do with the whole Texas and the eyes of Texas bullshit. Yeah, I know about that.
And so you have this destruction of statues.
Yeah, which I'm not even for that.
Yeah.
You had the fucking destruction, period.
Yeah, well, so those were paid for. A lot of those were paid for by grants and funds.
Yeah.
That were collected privately and some publicly.
Okay,
And
there's
so-
two parts.
Yeah.
Two part money that was collected,
Yeah,
and an agreeable public that
Yeah.
said,
Yes,
that's
yeah.
fine.
And also, too, I forget what the amendment is, but, the graves of all the soldiers that fought in wars, foreign and domestic, are protected under the Constitution as
Right.
citizens and monuments.
Yeah.
And the failure for me is that you have complicit socialist government officials. I mean, they basically are rooted in all the police departments. You know that.
But
I mean,
it's a politician being a politician.
it is, and it's on both sides. It's
Yes.
it's not just a Democrat versus Republican, because you got Democrats concede. I mean, Republicans concede way faster than a Democrat does. You talk about somebody putting a knee on your neck. The Democrat would be the first one to put the knee on your neck to get what they want. That's just the way they are.
Nobody wants to give up that fucking influence.
None at
whatsoever.
all.
You're not a millionaire,
Yeah.
but it's the influence.
Well, when I see that piece of shit Mitt Romney get on there, I fucking hate that guy.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy is a self-serving asshole.
Okay.
Okay, I'm surprised the Mormons even leave that guy alone. They should boot that idiot out. He's partially responsible for a lot of these neighborhoods that have fallen into dismay, because he's part of the businesses that he supports has moved all their jobs overseas. Now they're neighborhoods.
Like from the Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, all those places that have been shut down and shuttered and moved overseas. He's a big part of that.
I do.
He's a big
understand
part of that,
I get that.
But yet he's out there trying to pander to, and it's like, look, dude, here's the biggest problem in this country. There are a lot of disenfranchised people.
Uh-huh.
Okay, there's no way. You have the super elite rich that have gotten away with what they've gotten away with for so long, and they've bought their way into almost every step of your personal life
to get their way. Yeah.
to get their way. And so what you've got now is it's interesting, because you're watching this Black Lives Matter movement, and you got to remember who's funding them. I mean, you have a guy that's running for president by the name of Joe Biden that supported all their efforts. He supports everything. He's even provided money to bail them out. But he's been a 44-year politician.
Well,
all
he's
this
been a
stuff-
44-year puppet, because
Yeah.
he's not making decisions. Somebody's telling him that.
Well, that's what I'm
motherfucker
saying.
to
All
do.
this shit has happened under him. And in the 8 years he was in the White House, when you had a black president, you could have affected all this change, but they didn't do that. All they did is create dissension and disruption and hate. That's all they did. I mean, I don't care what anybody outside thinks. All you got to do is look at the evidence, and you can clearly see that.
Well,
Because it's very true. They had every chance to fix it.
having dissension amongst your voting populace is what gets people to vote.
Sure.
Whatever side of the issue you fall on.
Yeah. Well, you have the sad thing is that nobody wants to fix it. They want to control it.
Yeah, because
They want to benefit the best way possible from it.
Even
Because
if-
it's really easy to fix. All you do is put your foot down and say, "No, this shit stops."
yeah, and even if there was, let's just say hypothetically, a hey, you know what, a quarter turn this way, and all of a sudden this problem goes
Right.
away. You're going to create another problem. You're going to create another issue, because you've got to have that fucking dissension in the public. You've got to have people enemies with other fucking people.
People that have money, and we'll say from the middle class on up, they don't live in these poor neighborhoods, so they don't know how it is to fight for anything. Okay, the people who live in these neighborhoods have had a lot taken away from them, or they just don't have the ambition, some of them, to get there.
Yeah, because
There's two folds to that. Okay, there's two sides of it. It's not that they're disenfranchised because everybody around them's greedy. There's a motivation factor there as well. When you train somebody that the more children you have, the more money we'll give you, that's one thing. If we get you hooked on drugs, okay, and you're making your lifestyle off of that, that's another thing. The problem is that the non-skilled labor section in this country has been basically sent overseas, okay, because you can ignore labor laws, and there's OSHA and all this other compliance that's built into the United States that is not built in these other countries.
right.
So now you have, I mean, look at cities like Detroit, Cleveland, Pittsburgh. That was steel, automotive, There was a lot of industry in
the cultures that were there.
Yeah, all those things that were there. Those are replicated overseas. Okay, in many cases, actually new and improved. When they should have done them here, they did them over there.
Right.
That was all done in the name of profit. So what you have now is you have a populace that's not slowing down in growth. Okay, we're actually bringing more people in too. I mean, it's all designed to be overwhelming. We know that. You'd have to be a fool not to think that. But the problem is you got pandering politicians supporting the activities of these people. Now you've got them wanting to attack the history. Okay, and now if you want to start pointing fingers, the Democrats were a big part of the Civil War. Okay, you can argue the fact on who was slave owners and who weren't. You can argue the political party that put 10 years of Reconstruction on the South as a revenge. Okay, you have that too. You have politicians moving forward through each war, World War II. When you start getting the Korean Vietnam conflict, look at the huge defense contractors that came out of the Vietnam Wars.
Yeah, well,
and look at how politically active they were.
But short of having a history lesson, the moment man knew how to fucking conquer other man.
There you go. That's exactly it.
I'm not gonna dwell on what happened in the 18th, 19th, or 20th century.
Sure.
When the fucking dawn of man figured out, hey, that tribe's got more fish than we do, but we have more spears than they do.
That's the point I'm trying to make.
And the thing is somebody wanted something that somebody else had, and it didn't matter whether they have they're praying to tiki statues or anything like that. It had everything to do with what they have. I want. And oh, by the way, once I show them I have bigger spears and more spears, I'm gonna make them fucking wash my clothes. I'm gonna fuck their women. Yada yada yada.
Right.
Thus the dawn of fucking slavery. There you go.
And that's been going on for all cultures and all races forever. And it's not just. It's financial as well,
but it's
it's also ideological too.
and influence. I mean, you could and there's an element of influence that kind of feeds into the whole slavery thing. But I'm not going to get into this like nuanced discussion about what I think slavery is or is not, or what I think institutional race is, because that's something that kind of popped up on my radar the other day.
I don't think institutional racism is systemic in America at all.
I just got tired of seeing the term get thrown out, because whatever the definition was, hypothetically, let's just say back in 1980, if that term was even used back then, whatever it meant in 1980 means something different now. So you get to, it's like the shifting sands of definitions that I don't get. It's like, you know what red is? Red is fucking red. This systemic racism thing, or you being allowed to go in and take words and shift them around, or include things that weren't included before, and voila, you're running around saying that it's always meant this. No, motherfucker, it wasn't.
Right.
Back in 1980, it was this, when it was recognized as whatever criteria you used to come up with this term. It should be the fucking same right now. And that's how I kind of look at it.
No, and I think that's fair. But that's the problem, though, is that this younger generation is not being taught that. The younger generation is being taught the new version of it. The provided definitions are going to these kids. And so you have these kids now becoming contentious with adults and elderly, and people that that normally you're taught to respect, or they're no longer respect, and that becomes a big issue for everybody. I think that the violence that's coming out of it, if it continues to go unchecked, it's just going to continue to escalate, and that's going to be a problem for a lot of cities, because you look at most of them that are democratically controlled. They're very sympathetic to the cause, and they can't afford to step away from the cause, because that's how they plan on staying in office. They saw the tide coming to where they were potentially going to lose an election. Okay, so now they've got to create so much chaos that now it's a way of trying to. It's a last death throw for them. If they don't accomplish what they want now, they're going to have to regroup and come at it another way.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see just how long this runs. It's a horrible comparison, but let's hope it sticks around as long, sticks around as long as fucking coronavirus.
Well, the problem is that they're not even letting that go. They're acting like, oh, we got another wave. No, we don't have.
Yeah.
Everybody that tried to comply and has done really good at social distancing and all that got thrown out the window when you allowed tens of thousands of protesters to assemble.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. I mean, that tells me that you're not as concerned with what the protest groups are doing as you are with the private citizens. If you can keep them complied, then that to me is a control mechanism.
That whole expansion contraction.
Yeah,
thing
exactly.
Okay, we're slowly contracting. Okay, we need to create a situation where we can expand.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, this thing that we thought we'd nipped in the bud suddenly comes back again, and now it becomes newsworthy. And we talk about it. And because I'm always I'm constantly in the stock market right now. Anytime that word enters the conversation, all of a sudden, people. Well, hell, the fucking to some degree, the market responds in some ways. Me personally, in a way that affects a consumer from being a consumer. They're not going to go into a store. They're not going to partake in some service. They're not going to buy some product. Yada yada yada. Which is that's the fucking laws of supply and demand.
Right.
So how at least in my mind, is the market or the business has to learn how to stay successful even when you're in a time where it's challenging, like the coronavirus. So the curbside services that popped up, the delivery, fucking Amazon went through the fucking roof because people figured, because of the internet, it allows you to still be a freaking consumer without getting in your car, burning gas, and getting whatever it is that strikes your fucking fancy.
I think to a point, yeah, you're right. It does. I mean, it creates a bubble.
Right.
It creates a bubble. It's clearly hurting local business. I mean, that's what it's designed to do, though. I mean, Bezos is just getting richer by the minute.
Now, the one thing that I have not really noticed was, when people got up in arms, and that's a horrible way to say it, but when the riots and the protesting started after Floyd was killed, and people reacted in the way that you should, as, hey, somebody who wasn't deserving of this very horrible thing that happened, does it affect the stock markets? In my mind, the way that in my logic, no, it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Does several freaking local businesses that are burned to the ground, do they affect the market in a noticeable way? Not really. No.
Yeah, we'll
burn
see.
Burn an Amazon warehouse to the ground? That's another story.
Yeah, well, we'll see how that plays out in the next quarter, because that's really where it's going to start to tell.
Yeah,
because you got Motiva, oil and gas companies now saying, look, if things don't move before September, we're going to have some serious layoffs.
Now that I can see, because I can see whole fucking sectors.
Well, that's the problem, though, is all those things to support that.
Yeah.
Those people were spending money in businesses that markets are stable in. Mm-hmm. When they don't spend that money, you're going to see a huge shifting of the sand, man. It's going to be pretty devastating, I think.
Yes. But, in a ebb and flow kind of, because I'm looking at stuff every single day. Mm-hmm. And protests are going on, across the freaking landscape.
Right.
But they don't translate in a way that...
So let's clear this up just a little bit, though. So protests are happening by, I would say, less than 15% of the populace.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think it is, because you've got, if you look at the age groups of these, first of all, have you seen the mug shots?
I've seen some, but to your comment about the 15%, mm-hmm. the one thing I was going to say is the media, or at least mm-hmm. some of the media I see, mm-hmm. they make it sound like it's more prevalent than it really is. Of course,
because that's their job. Their job is just to terrify you. They've terrified you with COVID.
Yeah.
They've terrified you with all this other stuff that's coming along with it. And you can't get away from the news unless you cut it off. I'm like you. I don't watch the news.
Right.
But I know where to get the news I want. And I know how to skim through it. And I monitor my intake as well. But yeah, so you have, I mean, dude, it's hard to even put together a podcast that makes any sense with all this shit going on. Because, we can talk about hearts and flowers all we want, but in the next 120 days, you may not have that option.
Right.
You may not. I mean, it could be that bad. I mean, it's one of those things to where you have to kind of, wake your ass up. First of all, quit listening to fucking Hollywood. These guys, you've got a bunch of people that are paid to parrot things. They're paid millions of dollars to comply and project images. That's their job. Mm-hmm. Reality has nothing to do with them. Okay? They're the highest. I mean, when you protect abortionists, pedophiles, drug users, and deviants, that just tells me right there's something wrong with your society. To me, that's almost like the Romans. When you go back and you look at the rich elite, always pull Hollywood strings. And when you start hearing what goes behind the scenes in Hollywood, you go, oh, I get why they're doing that now, because they have all their dirt on them. Right. When you look at Scientologists, when they talk about locking your thetans up in a safe, that means all the dirty stuff they got you to do. If you don't do what they say, they're going to bust you with the dirty stuff you did. I mean, that's just how they are. So
one of the things that I just kind of thought about was when you look at media personalities, whether you're a sports figure, singer, movie star, whatever, and you look at their social media following as just an example, and it can be whatever platform you choose. You will see that whoever XYZ has a following that's like millions of people. Okay, but if you do it in reverse, because these followers like whatever this message of this media personality is, and to some degree, some of these people almost mimic the very things that some of these influence. This is the one time where I'll use influencers. Right. Will do. So if somebody likes suddenly, let's say if somebody didn't like tacos, Jesus Christ, I can't even imagine that. Right. But if somebody didn't like tacos and suddenly they saw Joe Blow, who's got 7 billion fucking followers, suddenly he starts eating tacos, and then 3 billion other people start eating tacos. Well, okay, really, if you think about it, the guy who's the guy who's eating the tacos basically has control over roughly about 3 billion puppets. So the guy that you like following, really, you're just his fucking puppet if you start doing everything that this guy does, or this guy, gal, whoever does.
What I think is funny about politicians, and I'm just going to say it straight up, Black Lives Matters will mean something to the Democrats up until November. After November, they'll divest themselves of it, and they'll just go back to the back burner again. You have to remember that politicians, all they're trying to do is get reelected. The Democratic Party is all about creating disruption because they saw the momentum that Trump has going into the summer. That's a fact. There's no undeniable way about it, because Joe Biden was written off as a dithering idiot. Trump was mowing him over. Now you've got bad Trump every day, all day long.
I still think he's an idiot. Just people, that's not the message they want to put
No,
out.
not at all.
Because really, if you take that message away, it leaves Trump unopposed.
Yeah, exactly. So. Yeah, and that's the whole thing. So what you got is because there's more behind it than that. You've got power hungry people like Nancy Pelosi and her gang of 5 that are out there trying to do what they're trying to do, and they love the disruption because they're allowed a lot of latitude when it comes to creating a new narrative, right? And they're just using these organizations. In November, they'll be just a distant memory to them. They just want power and control. That's all they're for, and it's unfortunate because while we're sitting back going to the beach and I'm going to the farm and we're trying to keep our lives normal, a lot of the shit's going on that has big impact. There's people, when you see people of all ages, races, cultures, creeds being harmed, to me it takes away a lot of what you're trying to say you're doing for the good of people.
I agree.
It's not for the good of people. It's good for a political party that wants to reshape. I mean, you had a former president say, we are here to fundamentally redefine America. Well, that's what he's done. That's what he's behind. That's what his party does. And that's what we're seeing right now. I mean, to me, there is no fair with them. You know, it's like I talked about last week. If you want to have cockroaches in the house, or do you want to be overrun by cockroaches? How do you do that? How do you live with them? You know, do you learn to live with them? Well, they're always breeding, and you always have to trim them back. And so that's what they were talking about, the Tree of Liberty. You know, I mean, that was one of those things that everybody keeps saying we're democracy. Well, we're not. We're a constitutional republic.
It's like fucking stepping on roaches.
Yeah, exactly.
Stepping on roaches is not being very inclusive.
Not at all. Not at all. And so I don't know. I'm just sitting here. Like I said, I'm in a weird place because I don't want to see it escalate, but the other side does. The other side wants to push it. And I'm afraid when they push it, they're going to get more than they bargained for. And I'm just worried about how they're going to handle that.
Yeah, the one thing I will say is across the board, no matter what side of the issue you're on, I think a lot of people will get more than they imagined that it would be.
Well, just like today, there was a thing that went out that says the Mongols and the Hells Angels were all going to Seattle. They issued. I'm trying to find it right here. They issued a.
Yeah, you're talking about the bike club. The bike club.
Yeah. They won't even. It won't even let me go there. Facebook's been acting weird all day. But anyway, basically, truck drivers. They said, well, trucks are going to block the highways. Nobody gets in. Nobody gets out. We're showing up with Teamsters and contractors and bikers and ex-military guys, and you have Monday's your last day on your little island.
Wait, who's saying? So who's
that
saying?
went out? That went out on Friday.
Who put the message out?
Just I can't get to the group because it won't let me in it right now.
Okay, but it's somebody that doesn't want the protest or wants the protest to continue.
No,
or
to
not?
end.
To end. Okay.
To end.
Right.
No. The bikers want. They're like, look, you're not going to trample on the flag anymore. You're not going to take over neighborhoods. You're not going to burn businesses. Let me see if I can get to it.
And the thing that's crazy is somebody will take that message. Mm-hmm. And they will assign a conservative slant or a progressive slant,
sure,
whichever. And I'm like, why can't it just be about a group of people that thinks that America needs?
If
to,
you
to
think
do
bikers
better?
represent my lifestyle, you got another guest coming. To me, bikers are like sworn to fun, loyal to none. They're about drugs. They're about, here it is right here. Buckle Up Seattle. See, they blacked out. They redacted the name of the group. It basically said, this is a friend sent it to me. It's not my post. Seattle, you've been warned. You have until Monday, June 15th to open the Capitol Hill area. We currently have 300 patriots signed up to march on your occupied area that will be armed and are not afraid to do whatever necessary to protect the people that do not want to be caught up in this. You have armed guards that are requiring people to prove they belong there.
Right.
This is a free country, and if you are looking to start a civil conflict, then no, we are ready. 100 truckers have signed up to shut down I-5 North and South, and 520 and I-90 bridges, as well as Highway 99. You say you're diversified, but know this group is made up of truckers, construction workers, ranchers, farmers, 2 biker groups, and mostly veterans that have seen conflict. We are sick of your crap that is affecting way too many people. Keep in mind, you do not have the police to call, so you so-called occupiers will be facing us one-to-one with no one to call. Seattle, you've been warned. Now, this could be fake news, but this is something you're eventually going to see.
And people write fucking manifestos all
the time. So it'd be interesting to see what the evening news brings us. But so you have these things going on right now, and at some point in time, it's going to happen. Do I support it? No. I'd like to see the people we pay to do this. The people we elect in office should be the ones breaking this up, not supporting it. To me, when you see a mayor, a governor, an attorney general, and a police chief saying, oh, no, this is no big deal, they should be immediately removed by the people and replaced.
Right.
Because that's their job. Their job is to protect people, not support political ideology. Every city has a charter. Every law enforcement.
And that's kind of the thing that was kind of rolling around my head is, if a city was set up with certain ideals in mind.
Yeah.
The way I look at it is that should be kind of written in stone
it is.
until y'all have some kind of agreement that says we're going to change it one way or the other, but I can't anybody ever coming up with the idea that goes, hey, you know what? You know what sounds like a really cool world to live in? Lawlessness.
Yeah.
Lawlessness is the way we need to fucking exist now. And this whole idea about these people groups that take the place of law enforcement.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, well, that happened back in the 30s and in the 40s, or actually the 20s and 30s, and you had people that were political party enforcers.
That's how fucking lynch mobs. That's where lynch mobs came.
Well, look at the party that the KKK. Okay, to me, that's no different than the sanctioned KKK.
Right.
Who's supporting this? The Democrats. So when you look at all the statues they're tearing down, they're statues of people that were established under the Democratic ideology. If you really go back to it and you look at the Democrats as the KKK, which they were, okay, you now have them wanting to erase the history that they were a big part of. So without those reminders of the Confederate statues around, you no longer have a visible anger link to the Democrats now, because they are supporting the removal of their own history. So now you're looking at, okay, they're even removing statues of people that freed black slaves.
What?
Yeah. Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
That's like, okay, so essentially what I just
they don't
heard
know history.
is you're taking down, let's just say hypothetically, and I don't know this for a fact, but if there was a statue of Harriet Tubman, you're telling me that there would be a group gathered to tell me that they're going to take that statue down, which is fucking bullshit.
Well, it's because they don't know history. They're just angry people tearing down statues right now. There was an abolitionist, a famous abolitionist, that they destroyed his statue, and I was like, dude, you realize what an abolitionist is? You know, I mean, they don't. That's the problem when you're not rooted in history. But anyway, you know, long story short, that's kind of the insanity this week.